Hey, welcome back. You know, I've always been fascinated by the stories we tell ourselves in the dark. Not ghost stories, exactly, but the ones that come from a place so deep and so desperate, they feel like they're being whispered from outside of us. I remember being a kid in Dhaka, during one of those monsoon power outages, the world reduced to the sound of rain and the flicker of a single candle. And in that intimate darkness, you'd feel it, a presence. Not threatening, but companionable, as if the room wasn't empty anymore. I think, on some level, we've all felt that. But what if that feeling wasn't just a trick of the mind? What if, at the very edge of human endurance, something or someone actually shows up? Hey, welcome back. I'm Ibnul J. Farabi, and this is the Unexplained Archive. Today, we're exploring a phenomenon that sits at the razor's edge between psychology and the paranormal, between a survival mechanism and a spiritual encounter. It's called the third man factor, and it's the mysterious, recurring experience of an unseen presence that guides, comforts, and saves people who are facing absolute solitude and extreme peril. The term was coined by author John Geiger, but the experience is ancient. It's the unseen companion who walks beside you in a blizzard. The voice that gives clear, calm instructions when your plane is going down. The extra set of hands that seem to help you lift a beam off a trapped limb. This isn't about seeing a full-blown apparition, usually. It's more subtle and often more powerful. A palpable feeling of another consciousness sharing your space, holding your despair at bay, and imparting a will to live that you, on your own, had utterly exhausted. Let's start with one of the most famous modern accounts. In 1933, British explorer Frank Smythe attempted to summit Mount Everest alone. Exhausted, oxygen-deprived, and utterly isolated in a world of rock and wind, he felt a powerful compulsion to share his mint cake. He broke it in half and turned to offer a piece to the person he felt was climbing beside him. There was, of course, no one there. But the presence was so real, so undeniably there, that it felt more rude to ignore it than to acknowledge an empty space. He described this companion not as a hallucination, but as a benevolent, sensible entity. This experience has been echoed by countless polar explorers, sailors adrift at sea, and survivors trapped in rubble. Adventurer Sir Ernest Shackleton, during his brutal Antarctic ordeal, reported that he and his men felt an extra presence, guiding them across the treacherous South Georgia mountains. He later wrote, "It seemed to me often that we were four, not three. A fourth man, unseen, keeping pace. But this isn't confined to the romantic, icy wastes of exploration. It appears in the starkest modern tragedies, too." After the 9/11 attacks, numerous survivors climbing down the smoke-filled stairwells of the World Trade Center described feeling guided or hearing a calm, authoritative voice telling them which way to go. One man, blinded by the dust and debris, distinctly felt someone take his hand and lead him to safety, only to find himself alone when he reached fresh air. In these moments of collective and personal catastrophe, the third man doesn't feel like a symptom of breakdown. It feels like an intervention. So what's happening here? The scientific explanation is understandably rooted in neuroscience. Extreme stress, sensory deprivation, isolation, and physical trauma can all trigger what's known as a sensed presence. The brain, overloaded and struggling to process its predicament, may essentially split its own sense of self. One part remains the suffering you, and the other part projects as a separate, supportive entity. It's a brilliant, built-in survival hack, a way for your own psyche to coach you through an unwinnable game. Neurologists can even point to specific regions, like the temporoparietal junction, which helps define the boundaries of self and other. Mess with it, and those boundaries blur. But, and there's always a but, the psychologist and researcher John Geiger, who interviewed hundreds of experiencers, found something that complicates the tidy neurological model. This presence often has a character, a personality of its own. It gives advice the person hadn't thought of. It possesses a calm they absolutely do not feel. In many cases, it feels foreign, not like a fragmented part of the self, but like a visitor, a guardian. One solo sailor, on the verge of giving up and letting his boat sink, heard a voice say, simply, "You're not alone." That voice, he insisted, saved his life. And he's not talking about his own inner voice. He's talking about another. This is where my engineer's mind and my storyteller's heart have this long, fascinating conversation. Is the third man factor the ultimate example of human resilience, a hidden program in our software that boots up only in the direst emergency? Or is it something more? Could extreme states of consciousness, the very states that break down the walls of our ordinary perception, be opening a door to something we don't yet understand? Perhaps a shared, archetypal protector figure, or something even more mysterious. I find myself thinking about this not just as a paranormal mystery, but as a deeply human one. We are, in the end, storytelling creatures. We narrate our lives to ourselves. And when the story becomes unbearable, when the protagonist is utterly broken, perhaps the mind's most profound defense is to introduce a new character into the plot. A guide, a companion, a third man. Whether that character emerges from the depths of our own incredible brain or steps in from some unseen dimension may be missing the point. The point is it works. It saves lives. It makes me wonder about the solitude we all carry, even in a city of millions like New York. We don't have to be on a mountain to feel alone, to be pushed to our limits. And maybe, in our own quieter crises, we've all experienced a whisper of this, a sudden, clear idea that feels gifted, not generated. A warmth that feels like a hand on the shoulder when no one is there. A sense that you are, in fact, not alone. The third man factor challenges us to reconsider the very nature of consciousness and companionship. It suggests that at our most vulnerable, we might be most open to a form of help we cannot see. A mystery that walks beside us, not to frighten, but to lead us home. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Unexplained Archive. If this story of invisible guides resonated with you, I'd be so grateful if you'd share it with someone. Your shares are what help other curious minds find our little community here. For more deep dives into life's enduring mysteries, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. This is Ibnul J. Farabi from Light Not Studios. Until next time, stay curious, and remember, you're not alone. Visit us at https://www.lightnotstudios.com.